Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. As you can tell by the title, I will be ranking all of Grady Hendrix's books. I am solely going to be focusing on his fiction stories. So I absolutely love Grady Hendrix. His writing is just so unique and each of his books really does captivate me, and I have loved reading all of them, some more than others, and there is probably one that I really don't like. So I guess let's get into it. Let me know in the comments if you've read any Grady Hendrix, what has been your favourite book, which one do you not like. I would love to have that discussion with you, and of course while you're down there you can hit subscribe so you can come back for more videos like this. So let's get into it. So coming in last place is My Best Friend's Exorcism. So this is not a favourite book of mine from Grady Hendrix. I really did not like this book. I'm not sure why, I just didn't really enjoy it when I read it. Yeah, the writing is still campy, it's still what he is known for. Loads of people love this. I am really in the minority of people who have read Grady Hendrix and didn't like this. I know loads of people who have absolutely adored this book, but it just wasn't for me. So to tell you a little bit about My Best Friend's Exorcism, we're following two friends really as like the main characters, Gretchen and Abby. They both go swimming and they lose Gretchen for a small portion of the evening, and when Gretchen comes back, she's not really who she used to be. She's acting different, and then the whole story is following their friendship group and Gretchen's change throughout this time period, and they discover that she is possessed. So it is centered around the theme of friendship. Can their friendship survive this whole ordeal, like becoming possessed by the devil? And can Abby really save Gretchen, and will they still be friends after all of this? A lot of bad things go down in this story. Gretchen does a lot of horrible things to her friends, and then the whole exorcism part. So that is essentially the story. It's centered around these friends and trying to save the person who is possessed. And for me, I just really did not enjoy following the two characters, but that's not to say that the suspense and the supernatural elements in this book weren't great. They were still really good, and a lot of people love this story, so don't just take my word on it, read it for yourself. For me, I just really did not connect as well as his other books, which is why I put it in last place. Then we have Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. This is his most recent book, which came out in January of this year, and I did enjoy reading this. Don't think that I didn't enjoy this, because I really did love reading this story. I find pregnancy and pregnancy horror very terrifying to read about, and he did this so well. Being a man and writing about women and the woman experience, I feel like he did it so well. The reason I've put it so low in this list is essentially because I've enjoyed the others more. But Witchcraft for Wayward Girls is definitely a good story. It's a bit different than what he's done previously. So usually Grady Hendrix writes in such a comedic, campy way, but this book is so different. We are essentially seeing him write in a historical fiction sort of manner, and he's writing about topics that were essentially what happened. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls follows this house for unwed mothers, and basically they're stripped of all of their previous life. They're not allowed to give out their original names, so they're all named something different. We're following Fern. She is 15 years old and is pregnant, so she is sent to this home in Florida Florida, where they are essentially meant to work and then have their baby and sign it away. They're put up for adoption and these girls don't see their babies again. So essentially that is something that we experienced in our own history. He's writing about homes that did exist. They've existed up until recent times. Very traumatic stuff. Another book that I read last year that covers a similar theme, but is more gothic rather than witchy, was The Ghost Woods by C.J. Cook. She explores the house for unwed mothers in Scotland. So very similar. I think that's the only thing they have in common. So these girls go to a library, a travelling mobile library, to get some books to help their education and whatever that is. But the librarian gives them a book of witchcraft, and then these girls explore witchcraft and they try to help their own situations by causing pain on others. It's an okay book. I did say when I was reading it that I would have loved to see more like of the horror side of it, like show me more of the spells and the witchcraft. The book had periods where none of that stuff happened. It was solely focused on the home and what these girls were facing. The pregnancy and the actual birth scenes were very well described and horrific. I really find that to be the most disturbing part of this book. It is a good book to read, pretty slow in parts because obviously we're following them during their whole trimesters, and the witchcraft is kind of slotted in. So a lot of people don't really enjoy that part of this book, but I thought it was still a decent read, and I thought that he had written these girls so well, especially for being a man. So yeah, that is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. And then we have the Final Girl Support Group. So this book is following the survivors of slashers, essentially. So they all come together in this support group to talk through their issues and kind of like help each other out in their own survival stories. We're following this group as they discover one of them has been missing and taken down. They have to kind of band together to see what's happening, and then they find themselves thrown back into the fire, so to speak. They have to survive their own slasher again. And yeah, it's a whole journey of exploring that, what happens after they have survived this whole big mess. It's essentially a love story to slasher movies, and I think that's why I did really enjoy reading this one so much. I'm a huge fan of slashers, and it's kind of just paying homage to their survivors of those movies. So once they have survived and they fought back and they took down their killers, what happens next? What's going on 20 years later? So I feel like that's a really good part in this book, and essentially taking their lives and like trying to put it back together piece by piece, but then something shocks that and they are forced into another whirlwind of survival. It is so action-packed. There's a lot going on in here. It's very campy and it's comedic, but also kind of written in a way that a horror movie, a horror slasher would be. There's some unpredictable twists in this story as well, and yes, it is just a fun time to read, and I really did enjoy getting through this book because it is so fun to read. And obviously if you're a slasher fan, I think that this is definitely one to pick up. And then we have Horror Store. So I don't have a physical copy of this, I read this as an ebook. So I thought this was incredible. It is such a fun take on writing a story. Essentially, Horror Store is a comedic version of IKEA, the furniture store, and the employees in this store kind of have themselves thrown into a whole new dimension. Like this furniture store is haunted and it has a portal and all of this stuff. It's just absolute chaos in this store, and they are forced to stay in this store overnight, and lots of weird crazy stuff happens. And really it's written like a catalogue for a store, so it was really interesting to read. Even in ebook form, you still had those images and the titles, and it was very much based on a Swedish furniture shop, which is of course IKEA. So I thought this one was really fun. It read so easily. He really did put all of the comedic elements of his writing into this story, and you really do enjoy the main character and you're really rooting for them. Lots of crazy things goes down, and yeah, it's just a fun time, and definitely a book that I feel like if you're new to horror, it's an easy way in. There's graphic scenes, but it's not absolutely disgusting, and you will kind of enjoy your time reading it. So yeah, I do think that Horror Store is definitely a good book if you're new. I read it when I was probably just starting this channel actually. So yeah, it's been a long time, but I still really think that it's a good book, and it probably ranks in the middle for me of Grady Hendrix's books. So coming in third place is We Sold Our Souls. This is a book that looks like a magazine. Like, I absolutely love this cover. I've seen this book now and it doesn't look like this anymore. So yeah, just pretty cool. It looks like a magazine cover, and it's a special edition, issue 666. Just right in that corner. I don't know if you can see, but yes. So We Sold Our Souls is a book that I adore. This was probably my favourite Grady Hendrix for a while. We Sold Our Souls is essentially following Chris, who was part of a rock band who weren't successful. They ended up breaking up, and she works as a night manager at a Best Western, and she's broke. She's pretty unhappy, but her bandmate is somehow successful in his career as a solo artist. So she's kind of like wondering what the heck happened. Why is she waking up and living in hell whilst her bandmate is being successful? But she's on a journey. She moves from Pennsylvania to find a satanic music festival to kind of discover what the hell is happening. And this is really about power and obsession. It's kind of, We Sold Our Souls is definitely like a look into conspiracy, kind of like what people will do to gain what they want in their life. So yeah, we follow Chris, and Chris is a character where you're really rooting for her. She stands out as like a badass female character who is trying to figure out her life. And yeah, she comes across as a bit crazy at times because she is so hard set on what she wants to do. So yeah, it's a really interesting story. I love this book so much because of its exploration into music, the whole rock scene, and how it's usually portrayed as this satanic hatred when it's really not that way. But this does take a look into that, but then also further explores the satanic elements that are often seen. And so yeah, it gets pretty dark. There's a lot of drugs, drinking, and like rock stuff happening, but it is a really good book. So if you haven't read We Sold Our Souls, I highly recommend picking this one up. So coming in second place is How to Sell a Haunted House. So this may be a shock to some people because not a lot of people enjoyed this book. I really loved how this was so chaotic. This book centered around a brother and sister who really don't like each other. They absolutely hate each other, and they are forced back together when their parents die to kind of sell their house. And the house is not what it seems. So it's a haunted house, and they really don't know that until they are cleaning it out and trying to sell it. I think the character is called Louise. Yeah. So Louise, the sister, does not want to return back to her childhood house. She has left the city, but her brother Mark remained there. And so they have a very estranged relationship, and Louise didn't want to go back. But she is forced to because obviously her parents have died, and the house is completely filled with puppets. So her mum had a massive puppet obsession. I think it's safe to say obsession. And they have to clean it out. So whilst they're doing this, the house kind of responds and doesn't respond in a very nice way. So this book is so crazy. It's kind of like stepping into a circus funhouse. The puppets have a huge role to play in this, and it just goes a bit nuts. And I don't want to say too much more about that because I feel like you need to experience all of that while you're reading it, because it is so chaotic in the best way possible. The book had so much fun. It was funny, it was sad. You feel so many emotions while reading this book. You start with grief, you move into anger, and then you end up in a state of absolute chaos. And then it's a fight for survival. It's a perfect book. Literally covered so many things, so many emotions, and it really does delve deep into the relationships with family. So your sister-brother relationship, definitely worth your time. Yes, so I really think that this is a great book to read. And finally, coming in first place is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I DNF'd this book about 2 years ago. Picked it up again recently and absolutely cannot believe that I DNF'd it. I love this book so much. It had so many things that I love. It was so funny, but also dealt with a lot of deep problematic subjects, and it just had my heart. I love the setting. The female characters, the mums in here were really headstrong and really fought for what they believed in, and she really didn't give up. Really loved it. Think that it's an incredible story. Everybody should read this at least once in their lifetime. It was very addictive. I really couldn't put it down once I picked it up again. So we're following a group of mums. They start a book club and they discuss books, but then they get into true crime. So focusing on true crime kind of becomes everything to Patricia, and she starts to consider her neighbour to be not a nice person, and it's often met with, oh, she's just crazy, but really it turns out that she should have been worried. And we're following that journey. So I'm not going to say too much more about it because it's worth the time to read. You need to read it for yourself. You'll have thrills, chills, and absolute rage. This is definitely one of his best books and my favourite from Grady Hendrix. So there you have it. Those are Grady Hendrix books ranked according to me. I hope you have enjoyed watching. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I guess until next time, keep your pages turning and embrace the darkness. Bye!